streaming.
Good evening, everyone. This is going to be
What's up?
This is going to be yet another fascinating technical marvel of a show. In case you haven't noticed, our background is totally different and our setup is totally different. And this is primarily due to the fact that the magical changeover between the US and Canada as far as time zones goes screwed up my ability to use my usual streaming program. So this is an adapt on the fly. As Wizard would say, most professional stream on the internet. When you realize 45 minutes before you're supposed to go live that you in fact need to set up a whole new studio. So,
Ouch.
and yes, I do in fact still sound like I smoke a pack of non-filters a day. So, hopefully the chat will have many, many questions for people today, and that will save my voice a little bit. All sorts of people in the chat already. I'm very happy to see all of you.
Stage fright.
Yes. I will figure out how to actually bring those up while we do introductions. So we're just going to go around and do a quick little intro while everybody gets settled. And there we go. Wizard?
I am the real life fake wizard. Happy to be here on the channel once again. Hoping to answer any marketing questions that come up. I think that's going to be, not to spoil it, but I think that's why I'm here, is to talk about the marketing side of the business world and maybe how that relates a little bit to the YouTube stuff as well. So I'm an avid TTRPG player, although I prefer to lean much more on the role-playing aspect. The crunchy stuff, I don't have the attention span anymore for it, but I very much love RPGs of all shapes and sizes. So happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Richard?
Hi, my name's Richard. I'm a professional translator, and I translated a game from French into English that I'll be presenting tonight called Night RPG. First time here, and happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. And that's about it, really.
All right. Thank you very much for coming, especially considering you are one of those in the massive time zone difference. Though not as massive as we thought it was going to be.
1 hour less. That's I'll take it.
All right. And Archangel Beth.
Elizabeth, Archangel Beth McCoy. I've been Archangel Beth for coming up 30 years. So, most people know, more people know me by that, but my wallet name. I was line editor for the Nomine line. And if it ever comes back out of trauma, I hope that I would be able to take it up again. But that you need to have a real spike in sales probably for that. I also have written some other GURP stuff even more recently, and I write and self-publish short stories and novels now and again, and fanfic. You can find the fanfic on AO3. It's free. Is there anything else I should be talking about? This is my first time on this sort of thing at all.
That's all right. You're doing fine. Whew. And you sound much less squeaky than I do, so all right. So I think this is the button I need. Farv stopped in to say hi. He's unfortunately not feeling well, so hopefully he will manage to either catch this on the replay or jump in a little bit later. And Jod, I think I don't actually know how to pronounce that, but I just pronounce it Jod. Yes, usually pops in after dinner, but actually managed to make it on time today, so good to see you. Eraserhead, our super mod. Big ship starting trouble already. He's trying really hard to get Eraser to like ban him for his use of pineapple on pizza.
But pineapple on pizza is good.
Don't even get him started. Eraserhead already asked me if there was a way for him to ban panelists. Sci-Fi Mumby, welcome. And let's see, do we have anybody? Yes, Mrs. Sparkles, welcome.
Look, more pineapple on pizza for me, and it's less for everybody else. So it's a win-win.
This is an ongoing debate in every single stream I have.
Pineapple, fresh cut tomato, and extra cheese. I want pizza now.
Okay, this is Slice and Dice. You're supposed to have pizza. The whole point is slices of pizza in games.
Yeah.
All right. So what we are going to do tonight, chat, I am depending on you again, because my voice is shot. I am depending on you to be heavy with the questions today. We are going to start today. Not only do I want to, push games that are, underappreciated and under-recognized, I also want to encourage people who are designing their own games, and their own stories and their own everything. And Real Life Fake Wizard is, in fact, a real-life marketing wizard. So he's going to talk a little bit about, if you have a creative idea, what the heck do you do with it? And how do you make it go from idea to actually being out in the open? So Wizard, take it away.
Try. Yeah, so I guess normally when it would come to something like this, there'll be, it's very hard to just say, here's what you do. It's a step one, it's a step two, it's a step three. It most of the time is going to come down to who you are, what your intentions are. What's, of course, money is going to be a big discussion point, because that could change things very, very quickly. But let's just talk about it from a very generic point of view. And if there's any questions that come in, or if you have any questions while we go about it, that would be really good too. But just to get into that nitty gritty, when it comes to marketing, whether it be an RPG game, or you're a doctor's office, or you're a tax accountant, which is pretty important right now, or you're a musician, or you're literally anything. Marketing is sales. And so understanding how sales work and how and why people buy things is imperative. Understanding that there is an emotional connection to why people buy things. Every transaction is an emotional decision. Whether they're buying apples in the grocery store because they're trying to eat healthy, or they're pulling into Wendy's because they brought back the Supreme Baconator. Whatever the case may be, it's buying an RPG book is no different. It's an emotional decision. You've convinced somebody to shell out on average $50 for the basic textbook, $50 US. For a player's handbook, right? That's what it is, unless it's discounted, which Amazon likes to do for people like Wizards of the Coast. It's discounted quite a bit, but you're looking at retail $50. And in that, you have to have been able to deliver what the value proposition is. What is the value in buying that particular game? And go cut me off at any time, because otherwise I will just keep going, and I don't want to take up your whole show. just to be clear, I'll go, but just cut me off when you need me to shut up.
No problem. I'll give you like a 10-minute warning or something when we're getting too late.
Yeah, well, the situation here is you have to provide value. Now, we'll get into the marketing stuff of that angle in just a second, but if somebody's picking up your book and they're in the store, you need to deliver on what the book is going to be, what the system is going to deliver on, and how easy in accessibility is it going to be. unfortunately, and this is kind of negative, but it's just the reality that we live in. There are people that play RPGs and there are people that do not. This is personally something that I've encountered myself with the game that I've been developing. Is there are people that play RPGs, and most of the time, those people, I will generally throw a big number and say that it's 80% of people are playing Dungeons and Dragons. Of that 80%, that's all they want to play. Maybe it's a little less, maybe it's a little more, which means that you're working with.
Ooh.
Yeah, boo. Which means you're working with something around 20% of the market that already exists, that's already active, that's already players that are going to be willing to play a different game. And they probably play other games. Over the last couple of months, I've come across a lot of people who exclusively do not play Dungeons and Dragons, which is fun. It's very funny because if you look at something like TikTok, which is a marketing avenue that you would very well want to take if you were trying to advertise your game, most of those people just play Dungeons and Dragons. They're very strong Dungeons and Dragons presence on there. Yeah, you'll find people that do others, but mostly you're going to find D&D TikTok people. YouTube's a little more open-minded. So that's something that comes into play. Let's just talking about the basics of your game, the basics of your book. You got to be able to hit them emotionally. So you have to be able to emotionally connect with people and hit them with the value proposition of why your game is worthwhile, why your system is worth deviating away from something else for, but also, and I think this is more important, and this is where I personally come from when I'm treating RPGs as an option. I want to evangelize new people, and that is the term that I use, is bringing new people into the medium, people that have never experienced the game before. That is a unique avenue, that is a unique market segmentation that not enough people consider as being the gold, right? Is people who've never played RPGs before. And so my advice to you as you're out there coming up with something, creating, put it in the position, put it in the design from the mindset of attracting people who don't know any of this stuff. And that is something I would absolutely do. If you're making a new game and it's your game, then you need to sell them your game. You don't need to sell them Dungeons and Dragons. If somebody's already bought in, great. They're already RPG players. But the market of people that do not play RPGs is significantly bigger than the people who are already playing RPGs. So that's something to be very critical of.
So
Understanding who the buyers are is massive. Yes.
can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah.
So I have run into a lot of people recently that said, "Oh yeah, I never got into role playing, but I always wanted to."
Yes.
And my immediate thing is like, come to me because like I can teach you games that are much easier to learn on than the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons. But I also find that I never used to play close attention to the art in role playing games because I was just interested in the game. And now I own books specifically for the art that I will never play the game. Do you think that the visual presentation is more important nowadays than it used to be just to get people to like pick up books and look at them, or?
That is a fantastic question, and it's going to come down to it depends. And let me explain why it depends. I made just personally, I'll tell you a personal experience here. I made a big push onto YouTube a few years ago. I was on D&D TikTok for a long time, and I think I hit 65,000 followers at the peak. And when I made the push onto YouTube, what I ended up doing was making friends with people that were in LawTube that had just finished covering some major trial. And what I did was I allied with these people who were getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 viewers on their live streams, and I ended up saying, "Hey guys, when that trial's done, D&D show. You got the big hype behind your trial, which is coming to an end. People still want to hang out with you on stream. Let's do a D&D show." And that's what we did. And so now we had, I'll just say, 3,000 something people watching those streams, most of which have never experienced Dungeons and Dragons before. So it didn't come to, so, and I say all of that to say, does the art matter? Yeah, sometimes. The presentation of how you put your game in front of people matters more than the art. And so if you're able to connect person to person, which is the best way to connect with people, a person to person connection is the best marketing avenue. Art is going to be good if it's a book in a store. And that's something I advise not doing until you've done quite a bit of legwork with beta testing and testing it out and making sure it's all good to go, which I'm sure these other fine folks on the panel could tell you. They have a lot more experience in that than I do. But the truth is when it comes to the RPGs, it really does, as far as my philosophy is, I see it in two ways. On one hand, you have a game. On the other hand, you have emotional connections. And people like to play as characters because they have emotional connections to them, the characters they're playing, but also the other people around the tables are playing. So if you have a system that fosters that emotional connection, you have a very strong chance at doing something with your game. It comes down to emotions and understanding how and why people think and what people want. And so that's a very big and broad thing. And I'm still just talking about sales, but if you want me to talk about marketing now as actual marketing, I can pivot into that.
Is that connection because I mean online gaming is becoming bigger and bigger. Is that connection made differently with people if you're playing online versus if you're playing at a table, you've probably met someone in a game store or like you already have something in common to kind of engage them.
People connect everywhere. You can connect with people in person, but you're only think about it this way. If you go to a comic shop or a tabletop shop and you advertise your game there, okay, great. You might be able to get a radius of, let's just say 30 miles radius from that shop. And then that shop might bring in, I'm just going to say 100 sets of eyeballs to look at your game. 100 people will be exposed to your game in that shop. And that's generally what most of the cases are. If you're online, you have the entire internet. So you can connect with people in person. Absolutely. I would implore you to do so because people are a little more open when they're in person. But you could still get just as good of emotional connections as you do online. And when I was doing D&D, we did D&D streams many years ago. We were playing with people in Australia and in the UK at the same time. It was 2 a.m. my time. Just like I know these fine folks here, it's a little late for them right now, but it was 2 a.m. for me, and we were playing in the best game I think I've ever been a part of. And it was people with you're being able to play games with people all over the world. Like I miss that. When I think of like some of the best times I've had, it's been with people that I met online that live all over the world. And that is something that's so unique is that games like this get away from geography because it's an emotional human connection that you can have with people. And so when you understand that, you really can figure out the best ways to market it. So
I'm not
as far as yeah.
Okay, so you basically have to target your audience and then target your marketing based on
you
that.
You need to figure out. So if you have a system, and I'll take you into the book that I've been developing. If you have a system, who's it for? So I opened by saying, you've got D&D, and then you've got the other RPGs, and then you have people that don't know anything at all. Okay, well, the system that you're making, is it a replacement for Dungeons and Dragons? Is it a Pathfinder-esque system? Is it very crunchy? Is it more focused on role play? And then what are the age ranges for that? Is it a little more crunchy that it's a more mature game for adults? Or can kids play this? Is this an educational system? Would it be better it's suited in schools? Is this something that would be really good for kids? Is there a learning experience part of it? Or is it a really dense combat system that takes up a lot of time? Okay, well, all of those questions are going to matter like a lot, because you need to understand who is the perfect person to play this. Because if it's a really crunchy rule system, you're not going to advertise that for something that could go into schools to teachers. It's going to be a much, much, much harder sell. So you want, if it's a crunchy system, well, then you're focusing on people that might be, and I might be out of line saying this, but might be more attuned to something like Warhammer. Because Warhammer, from what I've watched, could be a little crunchy. Right? There's a lot more to it, which I've never played Warhammer. All I've done is watch it, and it looks a little too much for me. But it's a matter of understanding who is your game best suited for, and the answer cannot be everyone, because not everyone is going to want to play every game. That's just not going to happen. And
you can't
yeah.
really target marketing at everyone, right?
No, so that's, I think that's a great pivot point. And then when it comes to the marketing, so you need to understand you need to understand the ins and outs and be able to answer any question on your product. You need to understand your product in and out. In this case, it's an RPG game. Then you need to understand who the perfect buyer is, and then we look at how do we get it in front of them. And almost 9 times out of 10, it's going to come down to using things like social media to get in front of people. Now, why? That seems kind of boring. It's like everybody does that. It's like, okay, it's free. Social media is free. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people have to go. And like I said before, money matters, right? Okay, well, if money's no object, which I know it's not for a lot of, it is for a lot of people. It's very important. It is for someone like me. Paid advertising to get it in front of the exact audience I want is going to be stupid expensive. And also, you're not able to foster that direct relationship with that buyer. So I may run an ad on Google, and I may pay a couple dollars to do it, but then the person who sees that is not going to know who I am. And if maybe they buy it, but what are the chances that they're going to use it? Now, the best way that you can market something today is by building a personal brand. Building a brand around you and building a brand around, in this case, it would be your business. You have to build a brand around you, and this is our game. This is what we do. This is our mission, and you give people reasons to connect with you. Also, because it's RPGs, you have infinite content. It's amazing. You play the game, and that's your content. You play the game, and you look for what I call HTMs, high tension moments. Those are the emotional moments where things happen. People get aggressive, or people get emotional. People get happy. The happier moments. You cut all those. Now you have shorts. Now you use those shorts or those Instagram reels to send people to be willing to watch the full live plays. That's the avenue. You bring people in to watch the game, and then, well, what are they playing? Are they playing Dungeons and Dragons, or are they playing something else? That's how you're going to bring in that's how you're going to bring in the people that already know what RPGs are. If you're doing something like what I'm doing, which is making a game system that is a role-playing system intended for educators, kids, and families, then that avenue will work. Sure, you'll be able to generate sales with RPG players. It's great, wonderful. But you need to find other ways to demo the game in front of teachers and kids. And that's going to come down to also doing stuff online anyway. But you're going to want to get involved with the schools. You're going to want to find ways to be involved with educators, which means learning all about that industry, and that's maybe being present in Facebook groups. Facebook groups are massive, where you can connect with parents. It also helps if you have kids that you could test the game with. Don't make it the game for kids if you don't have connections to kids. Okay? Just a heads up. Maybe don't do that. But
I made a game for kids, and I hate kids.
Yeah, that's kind of hard. That's a hard sell. That's a hard sell. People may not like that. But it really does come down to who is your audience, and then where are they? And your audience, you may not have. And it's not a matter of, do you have an audience? Do you have 100,000 subscribers? I know I don't. I would be a little bit more pressured with what I say if I did. So I feel like I could talk a little bit more freely now that I don't. But you have to be aware, where are the people that are going to want to buy this game? So is that a good general overview of the marketing and sales aspect?
I think so. The other people in the chat have been kind of discussing. I think some have been trying to figure out how you pick an audience, and yeah, that's actually a good question. How do you determine? I mean, if you have a game idea, how do you determine what kind of audience it attracts?
But you need to figure. Well, that comes down to what's the game.
Well,
If
I
you
mean,
understand the game, you could kind of answer that question. So if you have something that's crunchy like Pathfinder, which to some people that play the game, they say it's not. I will say it is because I'm a normie looking in. Right?
Definitely.
Yeah, I see the reactions.
Um,
Yeah.
It's satisfyingly crunchy. That's the
Right.
yeah, crunchy is a range, but um, I guess what I'm saying is you said that the best way to try and attract people is to get people who've never role played before.
Oh, that's
So,
one avenue.
well, I was thinking
So
like if they've never played before, they aren't going to know if they like crunchy or not. They're not going to know if they like role play or not. I mean, would you recommend doing one shots of different games or
one shots of different games, as in like I sell RPG XYZ, but then I demo D&D.
um no, like several people were talking about they had a bunch of different ideas. So, I guess I was thinking like if you had a bunch of different ideas, would you just kind of try out those ideas until you found one that seemed to like resonate with the audience the new audience you were trying to attract?
Well, I guess I'm coming at this from the point of mind of you have a game. You've invented a game. That game is complete. Complete in the sense of it could be in your mind. You could be still working things out, but you have your own game. That is your product. Trying out other games or other things would deviate away from your book. I guess everything that I'm saying here is coming from the position of you've already got the book in hand, whether it be a manuscript that you're ready to go or you've got a PDF or you have something tangible that is completed. You've already done all of the work.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about like fully developed, fully play tested,
I'm
fully
saying you have
everything.
everything that I have described is from the position of you're ready to start taking credit cards.
Okay. Got it.
That's where I'm coming from, and
That's when marketing
really
comes in. Yeah.
that's where the marketing comes in. If you're still in the development phase, I would not be telling anybody about anything. Like, all right, well, so we could double back on that. Yeah, if you're just developing your game, don't tell anyone broadly. Mm-hmm. This is for big reasons. It's easy enough to say like people steal ideas. I'm just going to be very, I guess, pragmatic here. When you talk about the game that you're developing, the amount of time that you spend talking about it increases. The amount of time that you spend working on it dramatically decreases. Work on your thing. Make your game.
Okay.
Don't tell people about your game. You should be beta testing it with people. You should absolutely test your game with folks, but like keep things to yourself unless you're directly asking for advice. You say, hey, I have this. I can give you a great example here. I was developing an armor system for my game, and it was driving me nuts. I have, in my office here, I have dry erase boards on all the walls. And I had every variation of this system mapped out for how I wanted this armor system to go, and I couldn't figure out a way to make the math. And what I ended up doing was having a conversation with another friend of mine who was one of those like guild masters who did LARP for a long time. And so I explained to him what I was trying to do, just kind of in a casual conversation. I'm like, here's the problem I've got. And he goes, oh, no, you just do it this way. I'm like, will that work? He's like, do the math. I did the math. And then, boom, armor system completed. Now the armor system works. That's the kind of conversations I recommend you would have with people, is when you need advice to break the parts of your mind that you're stuck on as far as creating your game. I would not go into, hey, go out with your friends. It's Pathfinder night at the comic shop, and you're like, hey, I'm making a game. Hey, I'm making a game. Hey, I'm making a game. I don't recommend doing that. it really does slow down the creative process because you enjoy the announcement more than the actual completion of the work. And
I think,
that's something that's talked about a lot in the business world too.
yeah, I was thinking about this comment that Blaze Reason put up. My problem is not lack of ideas; it's time to create it. I run into the same thing. I have 20 zillion ideas, but I don't know. I have no concept of which ones will actually be successful, and I only have enough time to complete one.
I could take that in two directions. I can give you the hustle culture mentality, which I think I will anyway, but I'm also going to tell you learn to appreciate when they fail. And this is something that is not talked enough about in the creative world, at least from my experience. You should be okay with failing. You got to be okay with taking some L's. You got to be willing to write out a couple of pages and then it doesn't work. You got to and that's okay because you're going to make a better game after you find that a couple of things do not work out. So be willing to fail. Failure is a wonderful thing. It's a great thing, because you should treat every single project you work on as, did I get a little bit better? Am I a little bit better at writing today? Am I a little bit better at communicating today than I was yesterday? That's what matters, especially with creative stuff. You can't be a perfectionist and be creative. You just can't be because you have an idea. You may have the best idea in the world you think right now today, but tomorrow you may wake up and have a better idea. So highly recommend that. Can you pull that comment back up again? Because there was another part of that I wanted to hit on. I think it was Blaze Reason. Oh, I could see it here. My problem is not lack of content. It is the time it takes to create it. I'm going to hit you with the hustle culture. You got to find the time. You got to make the time. If that's what it's coming down to, you got to make it happen. I'm not saying that you don't have responsibilities. We all do. We all got a lot of work. We got a lot of things ahead of us. You got to find the time to make it happen. And that's the tough love. It's a tough love. You got to find time somehow. And if that means scrolling on Instagram a little bit less, scrolling on YouTube a little bit less, maybe watching a few less videos or something along that line, or playing less video games, you got to find a way to make time to make stuff. And a lot of people don't like that reality, but it's just what we have to do. If you have a story inside you, if you have something inside you that you're like, I need to get this out, nothing can hold. Look, I've been up the last couple of days. I've been on fire just working on my own thing. I've been so excited that I can't sleep. I actually can't sleep. I'm groggy all day because I'm up all. I can't. I take a melatonin to go to sleep, and it does not work because the amount of ideas I have going through my head. It's annoying, the amount of ideas. If you're on fire like that, you will find the time. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I was really tempted to make a joke about, just don't stop watching this video. But honestly, like creativity and ideas and new stuff really matter to me. So seriously, like, if you have an idea and that means that I get one less view, as long as you follow through with that idea, I'm good with that because I want people out there making new things instead of complaining about the stuff we have.
I think that's just it. If my time on YouTube does anything, I mean, sure, I would love to see Disney Plus collapse, but I more so would like to see people pick up a pencil and start making something new. That's what matters most. Is finding ways to be creative, finding ways to teach others to be creative. It's something that's not taught in schools. Creativity is not taught in schools after grade 5 here in the States. It all becomes training the youth to be busybody workers. And so we don't learn creative thinking. We don't learn being creative. And there are tremendous skills that come with RPG games. Like, I think the biggest skill that I would say is empathy. It's a skill. You can learn how to be more empathetic by playing RPG games. It's a fascinating thing. If you're a GM, you just sit back and watch how these people connect with each other. They're playing out different characters. Think about the levels here. It's like it's quantum emotional physics I'm describing. You've got a person who is pretending to be someone they're not, and another person who's also pretending to be someone they're not, who are now interacting with each other to solve an equation that you've put in front of them. It is fascinating. It's an absolute study on interacting with people, and it's a wonderful thing. And I see there's a comment there. Hey, Wizard, I like D+. Kick him from the chat. You have been banned.
Don't make me choke to death. Pardon me. I had something I was going to say, and then I got laughing and coughing at the same time, and totally forgot what it was.
That'll happen.
Lack of oxygen. Yeah, I do think that there is a tendency to, like, especially in our society, to always have excuses about, why someone else should, be the one doing things and creating and everything else. But the whole reason I do this channel, even, as tiny as it is because creation is important to me. I'm about as uncreative as they come. This is why I write research projects on goats for a living instead of writing science fiction. Like, I'd really enjoy it.
You're not actually a goat?
Huh?
You're not
I mean,
actually a goat?
Who better to write about goats than a goat? Haven't you been paying attention to Hollywood? You can only write and act about things that you actually are.
Hey, that's a completely different conversation.
And the pineapple on pizza conversation is still going.
It's a good abomination. I will eat the abomination.
Do you think you were talking about crunchy versus not crunchy, and so I find that I also tend to be a really heavy roleplay person, and I therefore tend to try and suck people into role-playing with roleplay heavy games. Because I think it's easier to learn roleplay first, and then if they turn out to be crunchy people, they can learn the rules later. But that's my own bias, and I'm completely aware of that. Can you talk a little bit about how our own bias tends to affect whether or not things are successful? I mean, somebody was talking about how art really can bias people for or against. And my mother used to be a librarian, and her co-librarian was in charge of all the buying, but would only buy books that she actually liked. Which meant that the library didn't do very well because nobody else liked her books.
Yeah, you gotta do more than just that.
Is there an objective way to determine how to attract an audience without our own wannabe garbage getting in the way?
Well, attracting the audience, let me take it back to the players first, because, all right, let's say, here's a hypothetical. You've made your game. You've developed the game, and you're play testing it with people. Let's say you've assembled a group of people who've never played RPGs before. What are you going to do? Do you get into the nitty-gritty of your game on the first day? I highly do not recommend that. You need to create moments. I call them buy-in moments. This is something that I've used in many, many games that I've especially streams. Streaming is massive for this. When you're playing with people who've never played the game before, you have to create catered moments in the story or in the game for these people. And does that go a little bit against, like, oh, well, they're following the story here? It's like, what matters here? Does the story matter here, or does making an RPG player out of this person matter the most? Because they're going to remember, if this is the first time they're playing, they're going to remember you making a moment for them where they felt heroic, where they felt that buy-in. They feel emotionally connected to this type of game. That the not to get scientific, but like the dopamine rushes of playing this game, the joy that they're going to experience, they will remember that forever. So I'll tell you, so when we did Lawyers and Dragons, which was a pretty great show. It was the Lawyers and Dragons. It was fun. Thankfully, one of the lawyers had played D&D before. Another one was a gamer, so he was open to the idea of playing fantasy games. But the two other lawyers had never played D&D before, and they were very much intimidated. And so I was like, okay, so if they're coming into this intimidated, it is my job to make sure that by the end of this first episode, this first session, they feel comfortable. And I can truly open the door to them. And so you ask a lot of questions. Here's what's going on. Here's what the woods look like. The path before you is winding. What do you do? And depending on how they answer that question, depending on how they take that, is it how you're going to know if this game, if gaming is going to be good for them or if it's not going to be good for this type of person. Some people it doesn't click with. I've been in situations where I've said, here's the thing, what do you do? And a lot of people just go, I don't know, what am I supposed to do? These are people that usually don't have a creative brain. They don't, and that's not their fault. They just don't have the ability to think like that. But these lawyers, and you could see it all on screen, where I said, here's the situation, what do you do? And they go, I can do anything? Yes, you can do anything. Oh, well then I do this. I do that. And how do I do it? You roll for it. Okay, you succeeded. Describe how you would like to, attack that troll with your sword. And that's, you create these moments of leading them along into playing the game and open the world up for them. I'll give you one other quick one. We had, with the other lawyer that was on, she was having fun, but she wasn't bought in yet. And we got to, I think it's episode 5 of that show. And I figured, well, I know this person. We're friends. And she loves cats. I am going to introduce a talking cat companion that sounds shifty and untrustworthy. And he's going to show up on a salesman cart that he's a salesman and he was banned from another plane of existence. Why? Because he didn't pay his taxes. He was banished for tax evasion, and it was and so we play, and then boom, immediate buy-in because that you're speaking to the player. Game masters need to learn how to speak to the players and not just play out their stories, and that's a really dense conversation, especially when you're talking about new people. This is for new folks. I was part of a game actually just a couple weeks ago, and it was a stream, and we're doing a stream. You're playing for an audience. It's not the same as just playing the game. You got to play for the audience and not be on book so much. You got to be willing to play with the ideas. There's a little bit of improv there, but that's just RPGs itself. Play games for the players. You need to think of it as you're doing a service for people. This is you're doing a service of bringing people into this medium. You got to make it as accommodating as possible. And it's fun.
If it's your first game and you don't have any, let's say you don't have those connections and you're going for a new audience, and maybe Beth and Richard can jump in based on their company's experience. How do you find those new players to even get started getting the word out? I mean, you said social media and Facebook groups, but if you're going for players that haven't necessarily gamed before, how do you find them? Are there algorithms that work for that, or?
Well, assuming so you got a couple things here. And I'll pass the baton in a second. So assuming you've got a book, you've got your project completed, okay? If you're making content, you're gonna need to find people, your own friends, to do that with. Okay, that understand you, that you can kind of play test this thing with. You're going to want to find a way to get into Discords, and you got to go talk to people and make new friends too. You got to make new friends too, and find new ways to show your game off. I'll pass it now. I've talked a lot.
Beth and Richard, do you know anything about how you're? Because I mean, you both have worked for very different types of companies in very different areas. Do you know anything? I know you guys don't do the marketing, but
No. You can go.
No, please go ahead.
Oh wow. No, I don't do the marketing, and most of the people I meet, I actually these days meet through gaming. The way I got into gaming was through ElfQuest, where they made a role-playing game of the property, and I went, ooh, and I made 5 billion characters and never got a chance to play because it was just like me and a friend. And then I got into looking at BBSs because of the ElfQuest one, but that was the days of long distance, and I found the Steve Jackson Games BBS. And this eventually got me into GURPS, which eventually got me into Nomine, and then there's GURPS in Nomine and all that. It also got my email read by the Secret Service when they stole the BBS, but that's another story. No, your turn, please go.
that's a very entertaining story. But like, what drew you to GURPS? What about GURPS?
In part, what drew me to GURPS was proximity. They were in Austin. I was in Austin. It was a group of people who were talking about a cool role-playing system that wasn't as complicated, in my opinion, as D&D. I had the D&D stuff. It's like, okay, and it was AD&D at the time. It's maybe a little bit less complicated now with 5e, but GURPS 3rd edition I found was something that I could actually get into, and it had all the disadvantages. And advantages are cool. Stats are cool. Skills are cool. The disadvantages are where you can make a character and it's cool and nifty. And then I got into
I've always thought that the disadvantages and the flaws in characters I've always thought are very underrated.
Yeah. And then there was a friend of mine who runs D&D. So my kid was in it, and then I got into the games, and then he's the forever DM. So it's like, will you GM something? I will GM it if it's GURPS. Okay, sure, whatever. And he's got like a character with overconfident and impulsive, and he says, "What do you mean? I get points for these advantages?" And it's like, yes, this is how it works. So
okay,
recruiting
so like
other people to GURPS is possible.
So the disadvantages were kind of what really got your attention and separated it out from other stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
D&D
doesn't
Richard?
have any of that.
Yep.
Do you know anything about your? Sorry, go ahead.
No, please. The way Entremont Edition got their public, their fan base, as it were, is they hit the convention circuit really hard in France. This is 10 years ago. So when the game first came out and they were crowdfunding it, they went to every single games con that they could go to all over France. They were like every other weekend. They had a very small stall, very small booth at all of these cons, and just tried to sell their idea to people who were already gamers. So that narrows the market quite a bit. But they were relentless in getting the word out, and then it was shared on Facebook, shared back in the days when it wasn't a horrible cesspit. Anyway, they used the social media of the time, the tools that were there, and then it was word of mouth.
Yeah, that honestly had not occurred to me initially because France is a lot smaller than the US, but we also have a lot of conventions here. There's like 4 months where you could probably go every weekend easily, and then some scattered throughout the rest of the year.
It's a huge time investment. It's a lot of energy as well, and most conventions also charge a hefty fee, or it is hefty when you're starting out as a small publisher, or even if you're not a professional publisher, but just trying to get your product noticed or your game seen. It's a hurdle. It's definitely a hurdle.
So it's sort of one of those got to spend money to make money kinds of things.
Mm.
Wizard, do you have a follow up on that idea about the investing? You said you really got to make time for stuff.
Yeah,
I
you
just
gotta
wonder.
really. I think it comes down to if you're really dedicated to making something, you got to be willing to put the time into it, and that doesn't necessarily mean you should be throwing dollars at it. And I think that's really important because a lot of people think that okay, well, I'm making a game. Okay, well, I just need to start throwing money at it, or I should kickstart it, or oh gosh, don't do that. You know, build the game up, make sure that you're happy with it, be able to answer every single possible question that can be thrown your way about it. And that doesn't mean being a perfectionist. That just means understand there's a difference between memorizing and knowing. So a lot of people think you have to memorize everything, but believe me, when you're in the thick of it and people ask you something and you've only gone through and tried to memorize, like it's very, very, very different. And that's with anything. That's not with just RPG games. As far as investment is concerned, just invest your time. You know, if this is your thing, your time is the most valuable thing, and you got to be willing to use that wisely. Don't waste your time. You know, I'll say this: I have ADHD, so for me, when I start working on something, I get very easily distracted. It's a pain in the ass. I know a lot of people have it. A lot of people have different ways of dealing with that. That's great. I don't. Like I have that's the way that my brain works. I could be in the middle of something really important with work, and then boom, an idea pops in my head, and then I'm like, all right, well, no, I have to write that down, otherwise I will forget it. You got to be able to have that pad and pencil right next to you because that's what could happen. It's learning what is the best work strategy for you is very important, and that's how you would invest your time.
Okay. Any other questions from the chat on marketing about ideas that you have that you're trying to figure out how to get off the ground, or?
I guess then I'll tie up with this then while we wait for them to come in. Don't expect success overnight. Don't do that to yourself. Do not torture yourself like that. This is the kind of thing of like, oh man, no, this is kind of what happened with me. It was I pulled a series of all-nighters getting the game test out in almost a year ago now, and then after that I was ridiculously burnt out getting my game out there. Don't do that to yourself. I set an unreasonable expectation. I was a one-person machine at the time making the entire game. Also, don't do that to yourself. You know, it is okay to build games with other people. Just be aware of who you're partnering with. Like, actually understand who you're partnering with. Don't just sign on to start businesses with people without knowing who they are. Things will go very badly very quickly if you don't know who you're getting into business with. But that doesn't mean you should do everything on your own. You just have to do your due diligence and do your homework. And what does your gut tell you? Okay, your gut reaction is actually a very, very real thing. And if you get a bad vibe about somebody, don't work with them. You know, don't work with those people. You know, play games together. That's fine, but don't get into money on that thing. And don't expect results overnight. Do not expect massive, oh my gosh, my game's a hit, we're rivaling Hasbro. Like, that's not going to happen, and you can't punish yourself when it doesn't.
And when you do get into business with people, make sure that you have contracts that are very clearly spelled out, because I had a friend who had someone, let's just say that he trusted the person and the person did something really boneheaded and that could have been a real problem. So have clear expectations and contracts.
Yes.
I'm a horrible legal person. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Well, we're not lawyers.
the number of people that you know, go into business based on, you know, a handshake and a friendship that ends badly is
Especially if you
pretty
can,
big.
especially if by some miracle your project does take off. Who gets all the money? Who actually owns this business? Who owns the work? Who gets to license spin-offs from this? Who gets to say, "Oh yeah, sure, make adventures for us"? It could get kind of sticky, so be careful with that sort of thing.
Well, and the other thing is, like somebody was saying earlier, that their people didn't like their game based on the art. So you need to have contracts that say whether or not, like, okay, you know, the art's not working, we're going to let the artist go and get in a new artist and make another edition with better art.
Uh-huh.
And if that person says, well, you can't do that because I own part of, you know, I own part of this idea,
Uh-huh.
that's going to get real sticky, because the whole idea isn't working because that one person isn't up to
Uh-huh.
what you need. So Blaze has a question for you, Wizard. Currently, I am focused on the collab strategy. I'm working with other TTRPG creators, doing shared videos, cross advertising, and so on. What is your opinion about that?
I don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, that sounds great. Just be aware of what the other creators want to do. What is their goal? What are they after? Why are they creating? Are they trying to become famous? Are they trying to make a fortune? Are they trying to make their own game? Are they trying to make a business? Be aware of who you're doing content with. I think that's very important. A lot of people undermine that. Goat and I were talking about this before the show. Collaborations with people can be dangerous. Let me explain this to you. This is very, very important, and no one pays attention to collaborations like this, but you really should be. If collaborating with people on YouTube is a wonderful thing, if the person you're collaborating with has the exact same audience that you want and those viewers would watch your stuff, here's what happens, okay? Let's say that you do RPG content, okay? Let's say that you do all right, actually this happened to me. Let's say you do a game, you talk about RPGs. You have a channel that's dedicated to playing and talking about RPGs. Okay, well, when you go on a channel that's filled with lawyers and the people on there only watch legal content, but they subscribe to you because they like you personally, that doesn't mean they're going to watch your videos, which means your videos will come out, and if they don't watch them, YouTube will think that your videos are bad. So that's something that must be considered when it comes to collaborating with other channels. It's the kind of thing of like, in the gaming sphere, video gaming sphere, everybody wants to get featured on something like Asmongold, okay? You don't want that, because the Asmongold viewer may not be the same kind of viewer that you want watching your channel, okay? So getting shout out by other channels, getting picked up by other people, you gotta be, I'm not trying to downplay what your strategy is. TTRPGs are TTRPGs, so it's a little different, but it's something that most people don't know, is that collaborating with others could be very, very dangerous. It could be channel death is what you're looking at. There was one other point I wanted to say that I completely forgot what it was. I hope that answered your question.
Somebody else had a question. I'm trying to get them to expand on it. Wicked Zen said, I'm creative as a writer and storyteller, but struggle with the practical first steps of getting my stuff out there.
First you write. First you gotta get it out there and edit it and have something. I write usually moderately clean first drafts, so I'm not like a person I know who would like write a first draft and then set it aside and rewrite the whole thing from scratch with just their memories of what was cool about their first draft. It's like, I could not ever. But you got to have something to on the page so that you can edit it, so that you can get it out there. And once you need it there first, so.
I assume what they're saying is that they have, they have a finished product.
Okay, that's different.
And, you know, it's like a momentum thing. Like, once you've figured out how to get the ball rolling, it's easier to figure out where to send the ball. but getting the ball rolling to like that very, very first step can frequently be the hardest one. Like even just, when I'm writing, even just deciding whether or not I'm going to self-publish or take it to a publisher.
Yeah.
Like even just that first step, because there are pros and cons to both.
Yep.
Um,
But self-publish is always an option. Yeah. It may not be a great option, but it makes no money just sitting on your hard drive. It gets no eyeballs there.
but I suspect that that's the kind of thing he's talking about.
Okay,
But
in that
I
case,
was,
well, that's true.
or she. I'm sorry, I should not make assumptions. But anyway, I was kind of hoping that they could expand, but I'm not sure if they're still typing or
That
if they've
happens.
if they've gone to bed.
I'll give you this as an option there. So I'm creative as a writer and storyteller, but struggle with the practical first steps of getting my stuff out there. Post, tell stories, tell your stories. Even like, it's a little different because if you're making systems, if you're making books, you're making intellectual property, it's very hard to share that stuff because you want to sell that stuff. Unfortunately, we live in a world where you need to give people reasons to emotionally connect to you. So you need to tell, and there are so many tools that are available now to help you do this, of telling stories to get people to connect with you. And maybe it's not your big thing, maybe it's not your cornerstone project, but like Beth was saying, like if the first draft idea, you could do an entire series on first drafts with Wicked Zen, and like that's your video series, and like that's what you do, and it's like you just write a first draft and then you read it, and it's you telling stories that way. There's you think out of the box, and it's easy to say that, but it's another thing to do it. It's like sometimes the simplest solution is the one in front of you on this, and it's like, hey, I'm just gonna write it. I'm gonna go live, and I'm gonna write a story in 30 minutes, and then spend the next 10 minutes reading, like performing it, almost doing a dramatic reading of it. Okay, well that's a 40-minute stream. There you go.
Is this fiction or gaming ideas, Wicked Zen?
Exactly. That's a great question.
Because there's two different answers to what you just wrote in chat there.
Well, I was thinking that, a lot of gaming material, they have a little thing at the front that's kind of a scene
Vignettes.
From like a game, and I mean that could make a dramatic. I mean, those things have gotten me into a few games. That could make a good short dramatic reading, if nothing else.
Right. Well,
even for
I've actually been doing writing stuff. I mean, I'm not a 500% expert, but I did manage to make enough money self-publishing to get into SIFWA. So, go me. So, a lot of the time, it's okay. Leaning into gaming. Most people are not going to hijack your fiction in any way that matters. Also, you have your timestamp on when you posted it and the copyright. But plagiarism, it can be a problem. If you're really good, then some person comes along and like scrapes your fanfic off of AO3 and tries to self-publish it on Amazon. That happened for a while and had to be pounded by a lot of people. If you've got fiction, you submit that, and if you don't get any hits submitting it to magazines, I'd say you'd self-publish it. Find a nice bit of art or create something, and or pay somebody to do the cover and put it up there with draft to digital.
And please God, get an editor.
Yes. Yeah. At the very least, get nitpicky people who will notice all of your punctuation stuff, because I have some of my stuff, most of my stuff, my fiction doesn't have a professional editor who does story editing and plot and whatnot, and some people have noted in reviews that this means that the pacing is a bit interesting. My pacing is a duology, slow burn fantasy romance. Thank you. But people who like it, like it. But if you have bad punctuation, that's going to throw a lot of people out who would otherwise say nice things.
Yeah,
So at
it's so
least,
painful.
yeah, at least
I
get a copy editor.
there are
Or
out of the last 5 books I read, I read a lot of independent authors, and out
hmm
of the last 5 books I read, 2 of them were such good plot ideas, and it was so painful to read them because the editing was just
oh, it's
not
like,
there. But
dude,
anyway,
get an editor. At least
I
get
we
seem to
are
somebody
remember.
who's pedantic. Sorry.
I seem to
um,
remember a quote by Terry Pratchett quite a number of years ago, who was given a first draft by someone who was hoping to get noticed, hoping to get to publish something they'd written, and it was chock full of spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, punctuation, missing punctuation, things like that. And when kindly confronted about it, the person said something like, "Yeah, but don't publishers have people for that?" To which Pratchett answered something along the lines of, "Yes, they're called authors." It's something that has to be worked on. It's something that you can learn, that you can train, and yeah,
The
it's
cleaner
something
the
that you learn.
draft. Publishers get 5 billion submissions all the time. They get a ton of awesome ideas. Therefore they aren't looking for your awesome idea. They do not care about your awesome idea. They care how well your idea is presented, and this is one reason why an easy edit, decent idea is probably going to get published, and an awesome idea, terrible presentation is only going to get published if you actually, the editor who reads it gets it and is set on fire by your idea. And the chances of that happening are probably less than rolling a crit success in GURPS.
yeah, and I mean,
So
the
you
other
want to
thing
be
is,
clean edit. I've been a line
Mm.
editor, so I actually know some of this because we in Nomine did a lot of submissions from people. And therefore, people who didn't make good suggestions, sorry, bye bye. Yeah.
yeah, and the other thing is that like you may be great at writing in general, whether it's again, whether it's books, whether it's nonfiction, whether it's fiction. But like, I mean, I edit for other people, but my stuff still goes through 3 editors before it ever gets published because what's in my head is not always what other people see. And
Yeah.
so the things that are very obvious to me are not necessarily going to be obvious to the reader. You
Yeah.
need outside eyes no matter how good you are at spelling and grammar. It's
Yeah.
just it's a thing. So
Yeah.
I
At the
do
very
want to
least, you need a good better beta reading team. So
yeah.
anyway, sorry.
So we are after 7 and Richard is looking very tired.
Am I?
Go go.
Oh, sorry, I'm just being quiet.
Oh well, on this channel, it may just be that quiet is usually when people are going to sleep because normally there are lots of people. um,
Gotcha.
so Knight and Avalon RPG,
Hmm.
originally written in French, correct? And you
Yes.
translated it into English.
Translated this into English. It was written the first crowdfunding campaign to get it published happened 10 years ago to this month. So they're currently doing a 10-year anniversary thing in for the French audience. But it was only translated it during the pandemic, so lots of time to work on that from home. 2020, but it got crowdfunded. When was it? The backer kit was a year and a half ago, and it was financially sort of success-ish, good enough, not great. But in France, it's gotten quite a bit of attention. It's got great reviews, and it's one of the better known RPGs currently on the market. that is not one of the big 3 or 4. That is, Vampire, the Masquerade, the game that will not be named by Hasbro, and anything Cthulhu related. I believe we have a video. Did you want to run that?
Do you have the link for that? You had so much stuff you were going to show. I did not bother to pull the link up because I thought maybe
it's a very good introduction. I'll just try to find the link if I can.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bear with me just a minute.
I know how that works.
Well, I can look for it while you're talking if you'd like.
Oh, there's a backer kit link there.
Yeah, but it was the introduction to the campaign. I'm not sure where the. Yeah, that's the link. So what I will.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, what I can say while we look for it, or while we wait, is that it is currently available in English, and it has been delivered to the backers of the backer kit. They got it something like end of the year, November or December, so just in time for Christmas, which is always nice. And there's a distributor in America. I'm not too sure. I know it's Neoludis in Europe, but it's something. I have to find the name of the American distributor. So it can be obtained at your friendly local game store if you ask them to order it. That's the sort of things I was going to keep until the end, but let's see, where is
put in. Promote early, promote often.
Yeah.
I found the thingy.
The campaign teaser. That's the one.
I just have to blow it up and then see if I can figure out how on this particular program to share my screen. Share screen. Select screen. Now the question is, I do not know whether or not sound is going to work. So chat, you're going to have to let me know.
Nice. It's got captions.
There's supposed to be sound, right?
Yes, but it's got captions, so that's good. At least I see captions.
Hey, Goat, if you want to send the link in the private chat here, I could try to pull it up on this end with the sound.
All right, I heard my name, but I couldn't actually hear what you were saying because I can hear the sound.
Oh,
yeah, we can't. Hey, hang on. I'm gonna pull it up on this end. Don't take it down yet, and then I'll switch the screen.
Okay.
Right,
people who are, more technologically literate than I am.
Hold on. RPG campaign.
There's a lot of technology to be literate in.
I've sent it in the private chat just in case.
Oh, got it. Okay. Hang on. All right, I am doing a screen share.
Which I think means I have to stop screen sharing.
And pull mine up. All right.
In 2034.
Sound? Yes?
Sound!
Corrupted by
Sound.
anathema. A force that appeared across the world. Spawning nightmarish creatures and manifesting huge swathes of inhospitable darkness. Only pockets of humanity survived under the protection of the Immortals, former political and economic leaders who sheltered survivors in domed cities. Then, in 2036, a beacon of hope emerged in Dublin, Ireland. A lone warrior clad in ultra-high-tech armor that defied the laws of physics single-handedly pushed back the darkness. This man became known as Arthur. Now, leading 1,000 warriors equipped with similar armor known as knights, Arthur fights a desperate war against the anathema with the Immortals' support. You stand among these brave fighters as one of Arthur's knights, humanity's last hope for survival. In Knight, an Avalon RPG, players will don powerful meta-armors that come with unique abilities in this action-packed, sci-fi tabletop RPG experience, using the unique, multi-award-winning Knight system. Support the campaign today and drive away the anathema.
That's awesome. Bring us back. We're back.
We're back. All right.
It apparently had difficulty recognizing that I did not have the media thing up anymore.
Oh no.
Okay, so it definitely has a strong visual aesthetic that was not there in the very first edition of it, which it was kind of all over the place. But the US version has been polished up quite a bit. So it's a futuristic role-playing game set in the year 2037. With an unnatural darkness called the anathema that has radically altered the face of the earth as we know it. The dark is now full of strange, terrifying creatures, eager to kill, kidnap, vanish mankind as a whole, and also apparently drive it to the brink of despair. Leaps in technology, since it's very sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi. Leaps in technology have allowed humanity to live on in giant, a bit like Judge Dredd mega cities.
Arcologies?
Yeah, kind of. They are called arcs. So places in which, at least in the northern hemisphere, that are ruled over by a shady cabal of 24 people who call themselves immortals. They swear blind that it is thanks to technology that they are this way, that they have managed to transcend human limitations and become the saviors of humankind. And given that they offered to take in humans, the survivors, a couple of years after the darkness started appearing and started wiping everybody out, a lot of people chose to flock to their arcs. The only condition being that people who did that had to basically give up all their civil liberties and become serfs in service to the immortals. Yeah, these people became known as citizens, and those who refused, about 1/3 of the people in the areas in which the arcs were built, became called rejects, mostly by the immortals and by their propaganda. Their official news networks. Yeah. They built and controlled these huge megacities to which anyone could come. The others, those who still believed that they could live freely, live in small, isolated communities. Their lot is a much more unenviable one than the citizens. And again, the citizens aren't all that enviable either. Since they're mostly defenseless against the darkness and its creatures. Um, by the end of the year 2036, so this is just about 1 year before the beginning of the game, a weapon of a new kind was introduced to the world. An inventor came with a suit of high-tech armor that he handed to a former Eurocorps captain who was struggling to save people in Dublin, which was currently under a what's called in the game a gloom stain. So these great lakes of darkness, in which people just mostly vanish or get killed in gruesome ways. The soldier it was given to, or former soldier from Eurocorps called Raphael McTavish, put on the armor, went into the darkness, fought for 3 days and 3 nights straight. And after that, after 3 days and 3 nights of fighting, the unthinkable happened. The darkness lifted from the city, and McTavish, battered and bloodied but not broken, stumbled out victorious with a band of survivors. This man became known as Arthur and founded an organization of futuristic knights in powerful sci-fi armor that's quite like, let's say, late stage Marvel Cinematic Universe Iron Man suit. As a disclaimer, this game was written 10 years ago. The MCU was not in full swing yet. There's a whole lot of stuff that sort of entered the collective consciousness years and years after this game had been written. So it's
The perils of writing in the future.
Oh yeah. Plus, it's getting closer and closer. I mean, the events of the game are only a couple of years away now. At least the beginning of the background. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
lots
Sounds
of
about right.
great things to look forward to.
Can you tell me a little bit about like what some of the armor suits do, what the game looks like when you're actually playing?
Yep. Okay. The player characters are all Knights of Avalon. So characters are created via a system of drawing tarot cards, which is an unusual system. A group of 5, a draw of 5 tarot cards that can be random, can be semi-random, or simply just chosen. That depends on the GM and on the player's preference. These get. I'm just going to pull up the character sheet. The game is on the crunchier side. We were talking about crunch earlier.
Despite the cards. Let's see. Castle Falkenstein and Deadlands used cards. Tarot cards is new to me.
This one has it uses just the major arcana, and there's a specific there's a tailor-made deck for the game with illustrations that are more or less some are a bit spoilery about some of the secrets of the game. The characters have five different aspects, which are basically chosen when the cards are drawn, and depending on how high or how low the aspects are, the character can have been chosen to enter the Avalon organization. So that's the organization of knights. Thanks to performing a great deed, something that got them noticed, something that made their mark on the world as the beginning of their chivalric legend. The character, once the character creation has been done, I'll spare you the details, but it's as you can see from the sheet, it can be a little intimidating at first. Don't know what you think about.
I mean, it's one sheet instead of
At a
4,
glance.
so
Yeah,
that's a good start.
this is just one sheet. There's also an armor to take into consideration.
Okay, so it's 2 sheets instead of 4.
Yeah, 2 sheets. That's okay. Let's see if I can find the once the player's character has been completely created, they choose a suit of armor, which may well be the most important step of the character creation. It's a bit like choosing a class in some other games that won't be named. Once chosen, the armor is worn by the knight until death do they part, which happens often enough. The armors bring bonuses, have a certain amount of armor plating, force field that's more or less strong depending on the armor itself, and all of them have specific different abilities. Let's see, I'll just share another picture here. There are 9 different armors in the first in the base book, which are I'll see if I can share my
Pre-created.
screen just to get the
Yep.
the prettier pictures of the armors up as I walk through them. Let's go share screen.
So the armors are pre-gens. You don't go designing your own custom.
No. There are 9 different ones in the base in the core game. There's the warrior armor, which is a versatile suit that can be used to fill more or less any role in the game. But they're jack of all trades, master of none, as is so often said. Generally heavy armor and good at taking a few hits. The paladin armor. The paladin armor is more or less a walking turret that specializes in ranged weaponry and has a powerful localized force field. There's the priest armor, which specializes in creating items from scratch, from nothing, from clouds of nanomachines that can create items as required. But they are just a little bit squishier than the other armors. They also serve as repair units, so more or less a healer, as it were. And then there's the War Master, which is more or less like the Dungeons and Dragons Bard, in that it buffs allies and can fine tune other suits of armor to give them a little defense boost, or make them hit a little bit harder. That sort of thing. And they can also analyze the enemy's weaknesses, the enemy's stats, and so it's more of a strategic and slightly metagamey suit.
Support class.
Yeah, more of a support. And then there's, of course, the
Rogue.
yeah, definitely can turn invisible, cloaks, and hits very hard. But as soon as it attacks, it is no longer invisible, as per usual in this sort of thing. There's another one called the Ranger, which is one huge walking rifle, where the rifle is part of the armor itself. The bard is a chameleon metamorphic infiltration unit, which is very, very strong in social situations, but also in combat. If you can make yourself look like a tree, then most things will ignore you. And the last two armors are the third generation armors. They usually have much stronger force fields, but much less plating. One of them's the wizard that controls hyperheated plasma energy that it can use to burn
Fireball.
the enemies. Yeah. The explosion mode of the wizard armor is the Oriflamme mode, which is the Latin name of the battle standard of the kings of France in the Middle Ages. There was absolutely no way to translate that one easily. So,
That's fine.
And the barbarian armor, which is a much more malleable set of armor that can grow to immense sizes. It can grow to become. I'm just going to check because I know it's in French, but it can reach 18 feet to at least 18 feet tall by using a bit of its energy.
Hulk mode.
Yeah, definitely.
I was going to say,
Goliath
so
mode.
It turns into it's like the giant form of Ant-Man.
Yeah, absolutely. So it makes itself a very big target, but it's also definitely it hits harder and can rip up bits of the scenery to smack things about. If you need to take the front of a building or a tanker, an oil tanker, and hit a kaiju with it, then the barbarian is your guy. Now, at a glance, this might seem very. So I'm just got to get to. Is there any way to stop sharing until I find just the right page? Because I want to. Thank you. I want to get to the.
You actually are still sharing your other two pages, which is kind of gumming up the system a little bit. So.
Aha. My apologies. Remove from
That's right.
studio as learning.
If it was gumming it up too much, I would have said something earlier. Questions from the chat so far about everything he said? I don't tend to mind games that are too crunchy in the character generation department. How is the crunchiness as far as the actual play goes? Like, is combat slow or?
Combat depend. Sorry, the cat just jumped on my lap.
Yay, cat!
They do that.
Yeah. Combat is supposed to be rather fast and brutal. Enemies, the player characters are very strong, but the enemies are supposed to be quite powerful as well. If everyone knows the rules and knows what they're doing, it goes very smoothly. This is rarely the case, of course.
I think that's probably true of any game, no matter how crunchy or not it is.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd say that that there are some specific armors and play styles that are not to be that are to be used if you understand systems already and know how to avoid the pitfalls of getting bogged down by decision paralysis.
Yeah.
For instance, the Ranger meta armor has a wide array of different ammunitions that they can use on every single attack, and choosing how many and how much energy each shot is going to take can be a bit of a headache and can be overwhelming if it's a first time playing it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
As for the game system itself, it is surprisingly simple. There's a total of 15 characteristics. We had them up on the screen for a short while with the character sheet. I am showing it again just so that we can have an example. Thank you very much. So there's in the flesh aspect, there's movement, strength, and endurance. So that's the very physical stuff. Beast has aggression, combat, and instinct. Machine is the smarts, knowledge, tech, and ranged, calculating ranged attacks. The lady aspect is aura, eloquence, and composure. And the mask stat is stealth and dexterity and agility, so more of the sneaky things. Whenever a character has to make a roll when it's not in combat, because combat is always either combat or ranged as a base stat. Whenever someone has to make a roll, the GM decides what the base stat is going to be. Say, let's take the example that was used last week on this stream, which is scaling a wall. That would probably be a movement-based check, and then the player has to decide which other ability score they're going to use. So they'll take the number of dice they have in movement, and then they'll take the number of dice they have in, say, tech, if they decide to use their heads-up display to pinpoint the handholds, or they can use their dexterity if they're trying to grab onto very specific points, or their agility if they're trying to vault over very gracefully. And you take the second stat, the number of dice from the second ability score, add them together to form a pool, throw the pool of dice, so these are six-sided dice or any even-sided dice, and any even score counts as a success, and odd scores don't count at all. So even results are successes, and most actions have a certain number of successes to reach in order to be successful. Depending on what is being done, the GM can decide that some stats are more suited than others. Like, you're not going to be able to use I don't know, eloquence whilst trying to climb over a wall. You can't convince the wall to let you climb it, or you can try to do it very gracefully and very charismatically with the aura stat, but that's going to make the difficulty a little bit higher. Whereas if the GM has decided that that this wall is probably particularly easy to find handholds on, they might decide that the difficulty is a bit lower for someone using dexterity or, as I said earlier, tech. Or you could just try to run straight through the wall by using strength. That can also work, especially given the power of the suits that are being used.
I had a couple of questions from someone on Discord who could not be in the chat. His name is Pi. He was on our show a little bit ago, and he apparently is far more familiar with the game than I am. So I think some of the terms here you have not actually discussed. But first question, thematically, a lot of overlap with Cthulhu Tech. Was this one of the inspirations for the game? What key differentiations would you put emphasis on between both games, other than like the actual running of the game?
Night definitely has its own identity. It's not Cthulhu Tech at all. When did Cthulhu Tech come out?
I could not answer that one.
Yeah. 2007. So since this one is a few years after that, I know that the inspirations for Night are, amongst other things, Hellgate London. If anyone remembers that game, it was a video game from the early 2000s. Never heard of it. Too bad. Yeah, it got forgotten quite quickly. Yeah, the video game, indeed, Jowd. There's the idea. The basic idea was post-apocalyptic setting with monsters and Arthurian knights. They went on from there to go towards the first creative decision. Well, the first idea of the game, the first draft didn't have futuristic armor in it. It was much more human centric, much more just knights, just people with swords. I'm not sure when the change came to adding the armors to it happened, but it wasn't. I don't think it was influenced by Cthulhu Tech, as far as I know. What were the other questions?
The other question was, and these are terms that I don't think you've discussed, or I missed them. It says, how do you handle the notion of character despair without overlapping with player agenda? Are there any specific safety mechanisms put in place?
Right. Yes. Okay. So one of the effects of the darkness falling over the earth is that humankind seemed to start going into a sort of lethargy, or slowly going towards despair. Now, despair in game terms would be a bit like a sanity meter in some other games, where if ever the character's hope reaches 0, then the character falls into despair and can turn on their allies, or can become a knight of darkness. Is generally no longer playable, as it were. That's it doesn't happen often. Well, again, depending on the GM and depending on how you want to play it, it can be very despair heavy, or it can be very lenient on that. I know that I, as a GM, am pretty lenient on that front. But it doesn't happen fast enough for it to be an immediate concern. So I'd say that the safety net in that, or the safety element, would be that you're never going to go from full hope to nothing at all in a single game. It's something that's gradual, as the character needs to, as the knight needs to make difficult decisions, needs to face the necessities of reality, weighing the greater good against that of the individuals. Say they have to save either a group of children or a generator which is currently powering the whole settlement that the children belong to, and that there are 100 or 200 people in the settlement. What do you choose? If you can't have both, which way does the character have to go? And that's the sort of dilemma that should ideally happen in almost every single game, which is what makes it a horror game, despite it being a very high power epic fantasy thing. This means that the loss is gradual, and a character going towards despair will know that it's coming, or the player can plan around it, or can plan towards it. I see another.
Is there intrigue, courtly matters, Game of Thronesy aspect to it? If this question was already asked and answered, I'm sorry. I don't think it was. I think he mainly is looking to see, is this like just really heavy combat, or are there other role play and or survival aspects?
It is very heavy horror, as it if that's an answer. It's not really a good answer though. There are different aspects to the game which can be the political side, because Avalon as an organization is bankrolled by one of the Immortals and is, in theory, a tool of the Immortals. And the Immortals are not as upfront and honest as I mean, a group of 24 people who suddenly become the most the most important in the world probably have a couple of skeletons in their closets. So there's the fact that the knights can be seen as the enforcers, or can be used or instrumentalized as the enforcers of the arcs and of the immortals, which can provide drama, tension, and story ideas to explore other things than just we have to go and fight creatures of darkness. There's not as much in the Game of Thrones aspect. There's I see Game of Thrones aspect. I guess that's sort of political intriguing between influential families. That's not there. There's not that much of that. There's more intrigue, investigation. There can be, I'd say police stories, but that's investigative stories. The starter kit, the quick start kit, has a scenario in it which involves looking into an occult series of occult murders in one of the life holds, which are the huge buildings in the arcs.
Somebody asked if there was PvP.
No, not. I mean, there could be, but it's the themes, at least the way that I've always played it, and the themes are usually that the player characters and the knights are exceptional individuals. They are the hope of a dying world. They are there to be a flame in the darkness to try to stand against the dying world's fading light, and try to be there as a symbol of hope, which is yeah, no, that's the the easiest way I can sum it up. So they're not really supposed to be. There's not supposed to be infighting. There's not supposed to be bickering. Yes, but in the end, they're supposed to be an order of chivalrous knights that are working together towards a common goal.
So Lancelot doesn't sleep with Arthur's wife in this one.
I shall not say anything about that, especially since Arthur's wife is actually Guinevere. Is each suit has an onboard AI which handles most of the workings of the suit. Again, this is before the MCU went and put Jarvis into the spotlight. Each suit has an onboard AI, and the one in Excalibur, Arthur's suit, is actually called Guinevere. So it's a bit strange, and people are very skeptical. Some people are very wary of the fact that he spends a whole lot of time in deep conversation with her. A lot of time.
All right. So we are probably going to end up running over by maybe 15 minutes or so because I want to make sure Beth gets plenty of time. But I do want to double check. Do Richard or Wizard need to plug their stuff and head out? Or are you good for a little bit?
Oh, I'm good to stay. I'm not tired.
I've got to jump, so I'm going to say good night and see you real soon. This has been a lot of fun. I got to run. But yeah, that
Do you
game
wanna-
looks awesome, by the way. I just want to say, Richard, like that sounds really. I didn't want to jump in too much, but like I love the idea with the suits, and having the AI in the suits is really cool. That seems like a lot of fun. So looking forward to checking that out some more.
Do you want to plug your stuff before you go?
I'm the Real Life Fake Wizard. Check out fakewizard.com, and Goat and I might be working together on something in the future that could be pretty cool. And that's pretty much it. See you all later. I gotta run.
Have a great night. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
All right. Beth, you wanted to talk about In Nomine, and I believe you also
I do a
were
lot of stuff.
responsible- You were also responsible for GURPS In Nomine.
Yep, one of the co-authors, me and my spouse. Which there are a few things I would have done differently, but we did at least try to make the organization and the core rules somewhat more logical. That's the word. The Nomine core rules went through like two or three different iterations, and the one that got published was yet another. So I've always had a few quibbles with some of the layout, but it was a hard thing to do.
This is what Wizard was talking about with, lots of make sure your game is really ready to go before you publish it. That's why there are 4 different versions.
Yeah, well, it's only one of them got published, but it certainly evolved a lot from the French version, which was high satire, no choirs and bands, and some very different mechanics, into the more, I can't say playing it straight. It's still subverting a whole bunch of earthly religions, but more sincere version that got here. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So not less good omens and
I'd almost say in some ways more good omens, in some ways less in the others. More Pratchettian good omens. But well, that. So yes, it is. Thank you. I'm glad. It's that Steve Jackson Games did a lot of experiments with the line. That actually, the way that the fourth edition GURPS has the layout with columns and boxes, that came from the Nomine layout. They decided that was easier to do than their prior body text and sidebar stuff for GURPS. So
can you give us a quick rundown on the standard game and like what it's about?
Okay, In Nomine is urban fantasy, urban angels and demons. There was a war in heaven, and because Lucifer had objections, and then got really vehement about them, and killed the Metatron, which was God's voice. So God is now in the higher heavens, which are generally closed to everybody else, and the archangels are doing their best. The Seraphim Council, the archangels, they're doing their best to figure out what's proper, which mostly is try to make the demons not screw up Earth without completely revealing themselves and ruining free will. And the angels have a selfless mindset, demons have a selfish one, and they affect the symphony through what's called resonances. It's their special power of their species. And wow, I should just like have pulled up the GURPS and Nomine thing and read that off, because that probably would have been a lot more clear. Does anyone have a preference?
On
Go Dominic. Yes. Dominic. Yes,
Preference-
Nomine.
Preference on
Preferences
which?
for what I should be talking about.
All right, I don't understand this question at all, but
No, let's try not to do that. I'm a parent myself.
is this a reference to the game?
Sort of, kind of, probably, but not specifically. I mean, the thing that
It sounds very much like an American Gods kind of thing.
Yeah, it could be. Oh yeah, the dice system is the D666, which is you roll the skill on 2d6, and then you have the check die, which is the third one, and the skill is success or failure. That's you either roll under your skill, succeed, roll over your skill, fail. The third die is how much you succeed or fail by. So it's a little bit quirky. Some people hate that your margin of success means nothing. Almost nothing. It can actually give you auto successes, but but it's a certain bit of randomity. And if you get a 666, you get an infernal intervention. And the GM gets to say, gee, what horrible thing could happen?
So it's like a critical failure for...
It's a critical failure, but it's worse than a critical failure, because it means Lucifer has taken an interest in you and wants to do something to mess with you. Somehow.
I mean, for the record,
if you're an angel, if you're a demon, Lucifer has taken an interest in you, and he thinks you're doing a good job. You should keep up with that, boy.
For the record,
what if you get a 1/1/1? Sorry.
Divine intervention. The Almighty thinks that it's going to do something that benefits the Almighty here. And if you're an angel, that's generally quite good. And if you're a demon, that's not good at all. So yes, it reverses the 1/1/1. The crit success and failure reverses depending on what your character is. Inspiration for the game. Okay, I didn't write the game. I was just a line editor. I got pulled in after their original line editor vanished. So
the original ghosting.
Yeah, the original ghosting. The inspiration for the game was in Nomine Satanas Magna Veritas. How badly did I mess up?
No, that's absolutely it. In Nomine Satanis in Magna Veritas.
Right, also known as INSMV.
MV.
As opposed to INSJG. The original is a very high satire, kind of dark, morally gray at best, I gather. It's a lot of satire.
Very, very tongue-in-cheek as well. Lots of dark comedy, lots of humor, but very poking fun at mostly organized religion of all stripes, mostly Catholic.
Right. Yeah, and the Derek Percy took that, and originally I gather it was supposed to be basically a straight translation, and then more stuff happened. Ironically, I did not like one of the early drafts that I saw, and I thought that it's like, whatever. And I just bought the core rules to be, because it's Steve Jackson Games thing. It might be interesting. And I flipped through it, and it's like, oh, Lilum, hello there. Hi, oh, hey, Lilith's in here. Oh, cool. And then one thing led to another. So,
and next thing you know, you were editing.
Yeah, next thing I know, I was line editor, which is more than just editing. I did do editing as well on some of the stuff, and rewriting stuff that came in and was not up to Steve Jackson's standards, shall we say. I don't remember precisely who wrote some of these. I'm carefully forgetting who wrote the things that SJ emailed me and said, no, this is terrible. And I said already on it, here's the 2 pages I just rewrote for you, which I did do once. Original system versus the original system is very quirky.
Yeah,
I
she wrote the GURPS
yes,
conversions. She's kind of biased.
yeah. I mean, I like them both for different things. I like the GURPS layout of how we presented the rules a bit better, because I managed to fix one of my main problems, which is that in the song, how you perform a song is over here next to the Mr. Bubblehead art, and then the songs themselves are over in this other chapter. And I hated flipping through those. That was terrible. So we got to at least do that stuff. On the other hand, wedging the system of forces, souls are made up of forces: corporeal, ethereal, and celestial, body, mind, and spirit. And wedging that into GURPS, which has absolutely zip all about that, when forces and essence are so entwined, especially with Kyriatates, that was real hard. And I'm not fully happy with what we did. And if I were going to do it over, I would say it's going to be powered by GURPS. We're going to use a lot of GURPS, and also we're going to drag in forces and essence as a separate kind of thing, and I will make it work. I can find a way to make it work. I will make it work.
So this seems like a good lead into a couple of the questions I got off Facebook.
Okay.
Dennis Kellogg Jr. said, why GURPS?
Because GURPS has so much material. Do you want to play in Nomine in Ancient China? GURPS China. Do you want to play in Nomine in the Old West? GURPS Old West. Do you want to play in Nomine and the Weird West Spellslinger stuff that they did? Yeah, mashup. Sure, mashup. Do you want to
So
do
it didn't just have to be a modern horror.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There was just so much more material, and also, especially at the time, GURPS was Steve Jackson Games' bigger product, bigger line.
Mm-hmm.
So having an intro in there for people who wouldn't even look at Nomine, yeah. So it was supposed to also expand the number of people who might say, oh, why did I add some angels and demons into my game here? And a lot of the PDF stuff that was published after GURPS and Nomine has GURPS stats for all of the stuff, so you can actually grab them. Yes, you can randomly grab, GURP. You randomly grab GURPS books, shuffle them, poof, you got a campaign. It's like,
Dennis also asked, do you think that either the system or the GURPS conversion affects the vision or how the game comes across?
To some extent, the mechanics are going to have an aspect. The Marches was very IQ heavy, which is another reason why if I were going to do it over again, I'd want to pull it out. So I'd want to put more Indomine into the GURPS, because it made the Marches extremely well. Everything is your dump stat except IQ, which that's fair. Sorry, the cat is having complaints.
I do know. I think possibly the reason for the question is, like, I know people that tend to run GURPS fairly light, and so even the most serious of horror games, if you convert it to GURPS, ends up becoming a little bit cartoony, just because they tend to think of GURPS as being a little bit cartoony.
That's a new one on me. Normally it's like, GURPS, it's all crunchy. And I read GURPS very light, actually, where I've got all the crunch if I want it. And if a player wants crunch, they can do their own crunch. Thank you very much. They just have to take care of it. So, forces. Okay. Everyone is made of forces. And it's mind, body, spirit. And yeah, you could do an Omni big smalls. And each force gives you two stats, like your strength and your health are your corporeal ones, and your precision, hand-eye coordination, your intelligence are it's strength and dexterity, IQ, precision, and then will and perception are the celestial stats. So if you're very stubborn, then you're probably a demon. Well, no. If you're very stubborn, you're probably a demon. If you're very perceptive, you're probably an angel. But humans get them too. Humans just get like 5 of them, and angels and demon player characters get 9 to start with, and then you go up, and then you get archangels and demon princes, where forces don't mean much of anything because they have transcended. And that's what the Game Master's Guide has a whole chapter about, is doing superiors and forces and that sort of thing. Sorry, I'm a little bit scattered right now, apparently. The cat yelling at me does that. So,
I don't know if you can answer this one, but Dan Smith on the same group also said, whatever happened to the artist that did the great art in GURPS and Nomine?
hi, Smith. I see you. I don't know what happened to you. You'll have to answer that yourself. A lot of the art has actually been finding its way into some of the 4th edition art stuff. I look at things and I go, wait a minute, that's out of Nomine. Smith would have to answer that one himself, because I am not privy to that. I didn't do most of the art decisions.
Was he being sarcastic? Did he in fact?
Yes.
Are you?
He's the artist.
Okay.
He's the artist who did most of the stuff for the core rules and a whole bunch of the other art. That's why I'm going, hi, Smith.
This explains why several people put up gifs just like giving him side eye.
Yes.
And I completely missed this. Oh, okay. So, Curlian Sylvester, I think is how you pronounce it, wanted to know if there was ever going to be a GURPS 4th edition for In Nomine.
I don't know. I would be willing to redo the crunchy parts. I would, yeah, you can run gritty, you can run crunchy, you can run light. GURPS is great that way. I would certainly be willing to at least throw some of the stuff at someone who does crunch a lot better than I do and say, here, fix this. Personally, I feel like at some of the power levels that GURPS and Nomine runs at, and Nomine runs at in general, it's gotten into the supers level of, it's not about how many points your character is, it's about the GM has to assign spotlight for your character to shine. And in that respect, just pick up 3rd edition and use the point values for the Nomine specific stuff, and then use 4th edition for the rest of it, and let the pieces fall where they may. So you can do that.
Richard,
I'd love to see more
Did
new
you play the
Nomine
original French in Nomine, or were you just translating to make sure our pronunciation was?
Oh no, I played a little bit of the first In Nomine Satanis. I can understand why the Satanis was dropped for the American market.
Bingo.
It's definitely not a selling point outside of. I played quite a bit, but only the demon versions, and did a couple of mini LARPs or murder party.
Those things.
Yes.
Eavesdropping. When you have the character the player who's playing Eve, Archangel of Destiny, in the thing, and they go sneaking around listening to other people, it's eavesdropping. Sorry, I'm making puns.
I know that we had some characters were playing demons who were also, or who had been angels. So this would be Andre Alphas, who were in the backgrounds of all the angelic characters as being completely untrustworthy and must never be trusted with anything. Whereas it was actually one of the characters in the murder party who was more or less on the up and up. Very very clear about the fact that that okay, yes, the end of the world is coming. We are going to have to inflict Armageddon on the humans, but at least they're going to have to boink a lot to
That's
repopulate the Earth
Andre.
afterwards.
That's
Andre. Okay.
Andre. Yeah, yeah. A
So yeah,
lot
I
of
played
the
a. Yeah,
personalities.
sure.
Yeah, a lot of the personalities did, especially with the princes, did get used. I think Agenti is like almost word for word from looking at the translation and sort of puzzling it out for the same core rules. So a lot of the personalities came through, but then things got different. Someone is asking in chat my favorite Archangel and Prince. Well, you see, I'm quite fond of Archangel Beth, Archangel of Archives, and Demon Princess Beth, Princess of Nitpicking. Uh, my favorite is Lilith, and is on the prince's side, and I'm a horrible little Lilith fangirl, and I wrote the expansion for all the expansions on stuff with the Lilum and the Bright Lilum expansion and whatnot. Percy hated Bright Lilum, but Esther likes him, so I luck out here. And my favorite Archangel would be Jean, but
Jean.
Jean, yeah, but all the Americans say Jean, so lightning,
Richard,
freedom and lightning.
do you have a favorite, or did they not exist in the original?
Oh, they did. But I'd say that the one that I had to play during a murder party, who was Dominic,
Oh,
Archangel of
congratulations!
Judgment. Yes. When you have to go and tell a boardroom full of angels and devils that now that God has disappeared, we are going to have to go down there and put fear back into the heart of humankind and unleash global thermonuclear war. And you usually get a bit of side eye after that. Yeah, but he was very very fun and very difficult to play. So I'd say that I warmed up to that one in particular. And
Dominic's very fun.
as for demons, I'd say Furfur.
Hardcore
Yeah,
rock music.
Furfur, hardcore. Demon Prince of heavy metal. Yeah, Demon Prince of heavy metal.
Yeah, I think he gets an upgrade from. Actually, he doesn't have a word in the when the thing starts, does he? I can't remember the rev cycle right now. Asmodeus there, yeah. Prince of the Game. That was a good one. I'm really liked the expansion that we did in PDF form of the full, as E1, because that has some good stuff, fun stuff. Very very. What's the you can really get your teeth into the game and playing the game. And also I managed to get a adventure seed in there where, they discover LARPing. This is hilarious. We are going to LARP. Yes, we are just pretending to be angels and demons. We are doing a role-playing game. Excuse me while I arrest this guy. It's all part of the game. I liked that.
Any other questions from the chat? All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Richard, for being up so late, and thank you to Beth for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
We are, due to the oddity of our setup, there will be no outro song tonight, so I just want to make sure that everyone, Eraserhead, if you could throw up the links for everybody real quick. And Richard, if you want to tell us where we can find you, what your company's up to, any special events. Will this be available in the US ever?
It is currently available in the US. It can be found on DriveThruRPG. I believe I sent you the link.
I meant in proper book form.
Oh, in proper book form. It is.
Electronic files don't count.
Yeah.
No, they do.
In that case, your best bet is to ask your friendly local game store to order it from to order it, because there are a number of copies in stock. I'll just see if I can find who actually has it. Da, 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 da. Yeah, the US distributor is Studio 2. Make of that what you will. All I have is that name. But that's where where game stores can order it from. And yeah,
I thought I was
the
going to have it smuggled over from the UK.
I mean, you might still get it easier that way. I don't know. I haven't even gotten my own copy yet, which is
Oh,
a bit of a shame. Oh yeah.
I mean, I had someone from the UK all lined up to smuggle it for me, but the whole set would probably put a lot of weight in his carry-on, though. So
no
trees are
joke.
heavy.
I helped. There was an official campaign in French which weighed a number of pounds, and a friend of mine had just moved to French Polynesia, so into the to Vanuatu, which is in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of nowhere. And he wanted it sent over to him because he was going to be there for 4 or 5 years. The postal costs and taxes on it were horrendous. He paid 3 times as much as he paid for the game on it. It was, and I think that on the since there were dice and a pack of cards included in the game, it got flagged by customs as being a game of chance, which was illegal on those islands and had to be explained at customs for a long time to avoid a hefty fine and possibly prison.
Oh,
Yeah, don't send things into tiny countries unless you know the laws.
yeah.
But from
apparently,
from
good
the
to
UK
know.
to the States, that might work.
So I found their website. I'll have to contact them and find out if they actually work with any of the game companies in our entire state.
Good luck.
Otherwise, we'll go back to the smuggling as, option B.
Yeah.
All right. So you said that this is the 10-year anniversary. Did I remember that correctly?
Yes, indeed. They can be found at Entremonde Editions on Facebook. They still use that quite a bit. I'll just get my chest up here so that the writing is visible. And they have a Discord server that has a not very active English section. Unfortunately, not enough people, but very, very, very active French one. It's ludicrously popular.
So we need everyone in the chat to go sign up for the English version to make it worth getting a translator for the French version.
Yeah. I mean the core book and some of the splat books have already been translated. It's just they have to be re-edited or reprinted. If they ever do another printing drive, I will be sure to let you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm really fascinated by this game, and pretty much everyone I've run it by has been like, "How do I get a copy of that?" So,
Plus, it's a very layered game with loads of secrets, loads of things to unpack. You get out of it as much as you're willing to invest in time and emotionally. If horror games and exploring the darkness and how you can how to hold out against crushing unavoidable despair can be done. Those are themes that can be explored. Definitely.
My for a very large state with a very small population, we actually have an amazingly huge number of game stores in this state. And I'm pretty sure my husband is on a first name basis with the owner of every single one. So,
Hmm.
yeah, we're definitely going to have to put out some feelers. Apparently, Racer is failing his like and subscribe comments. Yes,
Horrors.
thank you very much to somebody did subscribe while we were in this, so I
Oh,
was going to. Oh, and Adam's popping in just as we're getting done. Hello, Adam, the ghost of the most. So yes, thank you to whoever it was that subscribed while we were doing this whole thing. So, Beth, where can we find you? What are you up to? Anything
well,
interesting game-wise or writing-wise, or that you'd like
well,
people
let's
to know about?
see. You can still get a lot of the Nomine stuff, mostly in PDF form, I'm afraid, at warehouse23.com. Just typing in Nomine, and heck, there's a some free adventures there. There's an Nomine Light adventure that has a really stripped down set of stuff that you can do with it, which I happen to think is possibly useful. Pull that out sometime when people are going, yeah, what do we want to do? Just like beer and pretzels kind of stuff. You can also, if you look at my Sparials stuff, that's for GURPS 4th edition, and I did the alien species for Sparials. So if you get that, it'd be nice. I think they're pretty alien little critters. And also at elizabethmccoy.com is where there are links to all of my fiction, some of which is lightly GURPS inspired, the short stories, a lot of them. And some of them are fantasy romance, and my kid tells me that they've held up. I'm scared to look at them anymore because I did write them a while back, and maybe the Suck Fairy visited, but no, the kid says they hold up, so that's good. And you can also ask your library, to get the ebooks because they're cheap for libraries. You can look in Hoopla, and that's about it. Archive of Our Own.org has my fiction as Archangel Beth if you want to read my smutty fiction. So, Halo. I'm holding the halo. You can see the halo above my head, right? Don't look at the stick.
Well, thank you both very much for being here. I am the Eclectic Goat. I am here, Twitter and Discord under the same name. Things are going to slow down a little bit after a very, very, well, there was a very busy week, and then there was a week of my being very sick. So
Oh,
we're going to slow down a little bit after this. Sunday, I will be on Sammy's Free Beats in other news. Monday, we will be doing. Actually, I don't think we're doing anything on Monday. I think I have Monday off, or I have Monday to actually run a game for Eraserhead and Adam and a couple other people. Yes, Adam, it was a wonderful stream. And I appreciated everyone who was here.
Thank you very much for having us.
Chat and panel. And I am currently working on for June, in celebration of 28 years later coming out, I'm doing a video on the history of zombie movies. So I have a very long list of things that I'm going to be watching between now and then, but I'm taking suggestions, so you can hit me up on Twitter and send me your zombie movie ideas. And
okay,
hopefully
hot take here, or difficult question. 28 Days Later, zombie movie or not?
It is technically categorized as a zombie movie because when you look at early zombie movies, they were not actually dead. Original zombie mythology does not involve dead people. It involves people hopped up on a lot of drugs.
And commercialism, lots of commercialism.
Yeah, so it's a cultural thing too, depending on like different cultures. I'm currently watching We Are All Dead, which is a Korean zombie thing, and that is also a virus-based idea as opposed to a dead-based idea. So,
and then there's Mira Grant's Feed that has some entertaining zombies. Apparently, she went and talked to the CDC until they said, no, don't do that with viruses. Don't do that. And she went, oh,
Pretty
yes,
sure-
I'll do that now.
Pretty sure the entire idea is in fact, one of the things I'm going to do is like define exactly what makes a zombie movie. You know, based on like everything I can find on all the different things, everything from like white zombie to whatever the most recent rendition is I can find of a zombie movie at the point where this all gets put together. So I'm also going to be doing another hashtag the book is better. And I've had a request by several people to do some collaborations with other YouTubers. So hopefully those will all be in the works in the next few months. So
Cross fingers.
thank you again to everyone. And like I said, there's no outro today because of the oddity of this particular stream. So
I think Gerald is talking about the Korean zombie show during the 1600s. Isn't that Kingdom? I think that's Kingdom.
there's Shogun, which is an older. It's like a historical zombie thing. Or no. No. I'm sorry. I'm getting no. You're right.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, you're right. I'm getting Shogun. They kind of came out in similar times, I think, or people were talking about them in similar times. But there's also one that's like takes place in like a modern day high school. That's very creepy. But I will say I've watched one episode that was subtitled and one that was dubbed. The dubbed is not great. So if you can find it in subtitled, you should totally watch it. Yes, I was mistaken. Wicked Zen. It is in fact Kingdom. I was thinking of the wrong. Didn't they make Pride and Prejudice and Zombies into a? I knew it was a book. Did they make it into a movie?
Yeah. At least in theory. I hear that some people say, no, there was no movie. There was no movie.
That one did not exist. Never made.
But there was a movie. I don't know if it was any good or not, but I saw trailers.
Unfortunately, doing a video on the history of zombie movies is absolutely going to involve having to watch some terrible ones. So that's going to be the... Rachel, thank you very much. I hope I am back to 100% soon as well.
Yeah, good luck.
I think it's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I think that's what you're thinking of, and that was just awful.
It was Vampire Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just terrible.
It was really bad. Really, really bad.
Yes, there are absolutely terrible zombie movies.
Well, have fun with that.
And on that note, everyone have a great night. Hope to stay in touch with my panelists and hope to see everyone back next week.
Have a good time.
Happy headbutting.
Good night.